Hello again, everybody. Now, do you all know what kinds of sentences there are in English? I'm sure you do, but I think it would be very useful for us to review this information. So let's study some examples of sentences and then discuss which category or which type of sentences they belong to. First, we have declarative sentences. These sentences simply make a statement. They say that something is true, or they make a statement that is true. The ball is red. The second type of sentence is an interrogative sentence, or a question. Is the ball red? The third is an imperative sentence. Imperative sentences give commands. For example, open the door. You are telling someone to do something with an imperative sentence. And then finally, an exclamatory sentence, where you make an exclamation or you say something with a great deal of emotion or strength. For example, I love Mondays. So, let's look at some examples where we use all of these different types of sentences and discuss them a little bit. In the first example, Elizabeth cannot stand being glued to one place for a long time. This sentence is declarative. It's just telling me information about Elizabeth, and it's making a negative statement as well. She cannot stand. She doesn't like it. In the second, John has a sweet tooth. He's like me. He likes cakes and pastries. This too is declarative, but this is a positive statement. It says that he does have something. Another example, where are you going on your business trip next week? This is interrogative. I'm asking a question. Where are you going next week? And a fourth example, be healthy and wealthy. This is an imperative sentence, and we use the imperative to tell people what to do or give commands, as well as encouraging them to do something or also giving advice. Imperatives are formed with the infinitive without the word to. For example, in the sentence, be healthy. Negative imperatives will begin with the phrase don't or do not, as in don't worry. Also, keep in mind that if you use a modifier such as never or always or anything like that, it should go at the beginning of your imperative statement. For example, always eat your vegetables and never stay up too late. Back to our examples. Our fifth example, don't worry, and our sixth example, never be late, are both examples of imperative sentences. Now, our seventh example, always try to tell the truth, just like number 6, has a phrase at the beginning, always. And because it's imperative too, we put always and never at the beginning. So in the next sentence, have you ever been to Japan? Here, have you ever been to Japan is an interrogative sentence because I'm asking you a question. I want to know if you have ever been to Japan. And in the next sentence, we have, what a lovely view. Now, this sentence is exclamatory. Exclamatory sentences will usually start with how or what. And they're emotional sentences followed by a piece of punctuation called an exclamation mark. Now, it's very, very important that you are not afraid of this structure. Many people don't like to use the exclamatory structure when they write or when they speak, but it's very normal for us to use it. Moving back to the examples, I can also say something like, what a surprise! This too is exclamatory. Our next example, bring me the package, please. Here, it's imperative, but I'm making a request. I'm not telling you, bring me the package. I'm simply asking you to. Bring me the package, please. The next example, show it to me. Here, this is imperative, but it also has the exclamation mark at the end, right? This means that it's said with a great deal of emotion. Now, it could be anger, show it to me. Or it could be excitement, oh cool, show it to me. All we know is that there is a lot of emotion, that it's a very strong statement. And the next example, he's leaving for the USA, isn't he? This is also an interrogative statement, just with a slightly different structure. And the next example, we've won the championship. Right, this too is exclamatory. We're happy that we've just won the championship. And one more example, you visited ancient Rome last Wednesday, didn't you? Here, again, I'm asking you about your vacation. So, it's an interrogative sentence. So now, let's consider interrogative sentences in a little bit more detail. Now, there are a few different forms of interrogative sentences, and each one of them has a different grammatical structure and serves a different purpose. For example, if I say something like, do you like studying English? This is a general question. Do you like studying English? So, a second type of question, who likes studying English? This is a question to the subject. I want to know who, what person I am talking to, likes studying English. Another example, do you like studying English or German? Now this is what we call an alternative question. Do you like A or B? And here, the answer should be something like, oh, I enjoy studying English, or I enjoy studying German. A fourth example, you like studying English, don't you? This is what we call a disjunctive question or a tag question because of that little bit on the end. Don't you? But we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And finally, why do you like studying English? This is a special question. I am asking you about reasons, motivations, and I'm using the word why to do it. So now, let's go into a little more detail. The first type of question we're going to deal with is a general question. And these questions can always be answered with either yes or no. And to form a general question, you will always need an auxiliary verb. But this verb is different according to what tense you are speaking in. For example, if I say, do you like dancing in the present simple tense, you could tell me, yes, I do. But if I ask you, would you like to go out, making a polite offer, you would say, no, I would not. Another example, did you go to Egypt last summer? Speaking in the past simple tense? No, we did not. Another example, were you going home when it happened? In the past continuous? Yes, I was. Have you ever been to the USA? In present perfect? No, I haven't. Or next, will you help me? A polite request made in the future simple tense. Sure, I will. Or, finally, shall I inform you about his arrival in advance? Asking about permission or an order. In which case you say, yes, please. And as a rule of thumb, you can simply respond in the same tense that you are asked. The answer is usually the same verb tense as the question. The next type of question that we're going to talk about are questions to the subject. And in a question to the subject, we're concerned about the doer of the action. So let's make up a sentence very quickly. I've got it. I have already read this book. And I can ask a few questions based on this sentence. I could ask, What have you read? And in this case, I'm asking about the book. I want to know which book you read. But if I ask, who has read this book? I'm asking a question to the subject. I want to know about which person read this book. In this case, me. In these given sentences, the auxiliary verb have refers to you, and has we use in conjunction with who. And as a rule of thumb, if we're using what or who, we will always use a singular auxiliary verb with it, such as in the examples. Who is responsible for the delivery of goods? Who helped you finish the task? Who will visit the exhibition? What has happened? Or, what was the reason of his quitting? Questions to the subject usually start with the question words what or who. The main peculiarity of these questions is the absence of the auxiliary verb in the present and past simple tenses. Alternative questions presuppose or assume a choice between two or more objects, but usually a fixed number. And these appear at the end of the question. And in this case, all of the objects that you are deciding between, or that you're talking about, will be separated by the word or. Like in the examples, do you prefer tea or coffee? Or would you prefer to stay home or go out? In both of these cases, I'm asking which one you will choose, and you must choose one or the other. If you have three or more items, the word or only appears before the last word. So for example, do you prefer tea, coffee, or soda? You must also know tag questions or disjunctive questions. And these are short questions that will appear at the end of a normal statement. These are usually used if you want to check if something is correct or not, or if you want someone else to agree or disagree with something. For example, the furniture set is awful, isn't it? Or, I'm right, aren't I? You haven't seen him for ages, have you? Everyone is here, aren't they? And nothing matters, does it? Analyzing these sentences, you will see that the tag on the end of the question or on the end of the statement is in the opposite mood of the preceding statement. So for example, if I make a positive statement, you like pie, the tag needs to be negative, don't you? Likewise, for a negative statement, you don't like pie. The tag should be positive. Do you? Also, pay attention to the fact that in the first person, I, we use are and aren't. For example, I'm right, aren't I? Just like in the previous examples, you use are and aren't with I in the tag for the tag question. Some other rules are that we use they if we're discussing nobody, somebody, and everybody. Everybody is here, aren't they? Another rule is that we will use it to refer to nothing, something, or everything. Basically, a word that ends with thing. Everything is here, isn't it? One more rule. We use a positive tag after negative statements like no, nobody, nothing, never, and hardly. For example, nobody is here, are they? Here at the end, it's a positive tag. And finally, with imperatives, you will replace will, would, and could with the phrase won't. Take a seat, won't you? So, let's read some more examples, practicing imperatives. Taste the cake, won't you? Close the door, please, won't you? Give me a hand, will you? Or finally, don't forget, will you? Here, these are used to make polite requests with the imperative. So now, finally, moving on to special questions. What I mean is questions which begin with words like what, where, when, and how. And these are usually called WH questions because most of the question words begin with the letters WH. Concerning the word order in a special question, you should note that auxiliary verbs come immediately after the question word. And this appropriate auxiliary verb will change depending on what tense you're speaking in. So let's look at some examples. In the first example, how much time does it take you to get to the office? Here we're speaking in present simple, so we use does after how much. In the second example, where can I hire a bike? Here, can is a modal verb and acts like an auxiliary, so we put it immediately after the question. The third example, how do you usually get around your city? Again, present simple, do is our auxiliary verb. Next, what is your colleague in charge of? Here, again, is our auxiliary verb because we're speaking again in the present. What is your colleague in charge of? And one final example, why isn't it common to negotiate the price here? Here, even though isn't is negative, we still use it exactly the same way. It's an auxiliary, so it comes right after the question word. And you should also note that if there is a modal verb, can, may, should, we put it directly after the question word as well. That's all for today. Now, I hope you all feel a little bit more comfortable now about your knowledge of some of the peculiarities of the different kinds of sentence structures in English. And just to make sure you know them, let's review the differences between each kind of interrogative structure together. General questions will begin with an auxiliary verb. For example, have you ever been to the USA? Or shall I inform you about his arrival? And all of these can be answered with either yes or no. Alternative questions also begin with an auxiliary verb. However, these require you to choose between two objects or more. And these are separated by the word or. Would you like tea or coffee? Do you prefer reading books or watching TV? Special questions begin with question words, where, when, how, why, which, etc. And the auxiliary verb here is used immediately after the question word. Where have you spent the weekend? And why are you so upset? Questions to the subject begin with what or who, and there is no auxiliary verb in the present or the past simple tenses. And remember to use singular verbs after what and who. For example, who helped you? Or who was responsible for this? Or what is the reason for this? Finally, disjunctive questions or tag questions use the same word order as an affirmative sentence or a normal declarative sentence with a question tag at the end. For a positive statement, you use a negative tag, and for a negative statement, you use a positive tag. And be sure to use they in conjunction with nobody, somebody, and everybody. It, referring to nothing, something, and everything. Remember to use a positive tag after no, nobody, nothing, never, and hardly. And remember to use are when speaking in the first person. And some examples of the disjunctive question are, nobody is at home. Are they? Everyone is satisfied with this decision, aren't they? And nothing ever changes, does it? Now, that's everything for today. Be sure to review all of the information contained in the tables and review this lesson a couple times just to make sure that you know it. See you next time. you.